Greetings. My name is Jared Fields. I am the president of the Emerging 100 South Metro Atlanta. I would like to thank you all for tuning in for Mental Health Matters Part 2. We'll be covering the topics of depression, anxiety, panic disorder, and bipolar depression. Let me go ahead and introduce our speakers for today. Today, we will be featuring Day by Day Therapy, LLC. Day by Day Therapy, LLC was established to help, service, and educate our community about mental health and behavioral health. It has outpatient services for children, adolescents, and adults. The focus is for clients to reach their highest mental stability. The owner, who we have tonight, is Kirby Turner. Ms. Kirby Turner is a native of New Orleans. She attended Tougaloo College and Mississippi College respectively, earning a degree in Bachelor of Arts in Psychology and also a Master of Science in Marriage and Family Counseling. She came to Atlanta to pursue her dream of starting Day by Day Therapy, LLC, and she is here today to speak more about it. Secondly, we have Ms. LaPortia Smith. She has 5.5 years of experience in knowledge and crisis intervention, psychological counseling, and community outreach. She's a psychotherapist by day at Day by Day Therapy. She has years of individual counseling for families of all ages. We also have her here tonight to speak about our mental health and how the community can be impacted by Day Therapy, LLC. I'm gonna bring them on now so that they can speak more about themselves and speak about what they do on a daily basis to help our community. I introduce to you Ms. Kirby Turner and Ms. LaPortia Smith.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. How y'all doing today?
Good.
That's good. Well, I only gave a brief introduction of you all because I didn't want to take too much shine away from you. So if you all can go ahead, please tell us more about yourself and about what you do on a daily basis to help our community.
Okay, so you covered a lot of bases. So thank you for that. Thank you for that introduction. Like you said, I'm originally from New Orleans. I attended Tougaloo College, and then I went and got my master's from Mississippi College. During the reason of Day by Day Therapy is because during my internship in grad school, I learned that a lot of kids were in prison or either didn't have a lack of resources or didn't have resources. And that is the reason of Day by Day Therapy. I felt like if those children had services available in their community, then a lot of detention centers and things like that wouldn't be filled with kids that only need treatment, not necessarily for trauma.
Thank you. And LaPortia, tell us about you. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and about your daily efforts to help the community.
Okay, so I attended North Carolina A&T State University for undergrad, and I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. And then I went on to attend Argosy University in Atlanta, and I have a master's in community counseling. First of all, I want to say it's a pleasure to be a part of Day by Day Therapy. It's such a wonderful staff here in the community. It's an all-female staff, and we meet people where they are. And I think that's what you have to do when people are dealing with mental illnesses or disorders. You have to kind of meet them where they are and then guide them to where they need to be for stability. So what I do every day is I work with individuals one-on-one to help them kind of define their problem, understand the problem, and then accept their problem. And then we work together to achieve our goals.
All right. So I have the first thing I want to address is, well, first, before I go there, please, all viewers, will you please, if you have any questions that you would like to ask Miss Kirby and LaPortia, please put it into the comment section or into the chat on whichever streaming platforms that you're using so that we can get your questions out. And also, please fill out the survey at the end of this event. So let's go ahead and get started. I think I want to start with depression. So first, no, let me not say that. What I want to start with is tell me about mental health. Let's start there. So tell us about mental health and the importance of mental health, and then we'll branch from there to depression and anxiety and etc.
I believe everyone experiences some form of mental health. So mental health is just as important as going to your primary care. It's something that is needed, and more attention towards it needs to be brought due to the fact that a lot of people think that it's a stigma associated with it, a negative stigma associated with it. So mental health to me is life, because there's the certain portions of your life that you're going to experience, that you're going to go through, such as birth, such as transitioning to a teenager, transitioning to become a brother or a sister, transitioning to become a mother. Then you experience grief with your parents and different things like that. A lot of things that you are going to experience, you're going to have some type of mental health association with it. And instead of us looking down on it, I think it should be brought to awareness of, hey, that's something that a lot of people experience, and you're not alone. So I just truly believe that mental health is basically the outcome of our life.
And LaPortia, what is your take on it?
I agree with Kirby. I feel like this is a conversation that should definitely be normalized because, like Kirby said, we experience life, and with life come challenges, and with challenges, it can affect the way you think, the way you feel, the way you behave. So mental health is important, and it's a normal part of our everyday life and existence. So I feel like what Kirby said, mental health is just a conversation that should be normalized.
As you're dealing with as you are dealing with clients, I'm gonna address it to LaPortia. LaPortia, as you are dealing with your clients, what are some signs of depression that they may mention to you? So, for example, what are some common signs of depression that someone may come to you inquiring about, but they probably are, unbeknownst to them, it's depression, but they may think it's something else. So, what are like some signs of depression?
Okay, so the number one question I like to ask is how's your sleep pattern? You can tell a lot about a person by their sleep pattern. Okay, so if they're not getting any sleep, or if they're sleeping too much, that could be a sign of depression. Focus and concentration. I'm starting to become forgetful. I can't remember things. Classic sign of depression. A lot of people feel like that's just a normal thing, but it could be you're dealing with depression. What are some other?
So for example, if a client comes in and says that they may be experiencing, because I believe you have to deal with the lack of, sometimes it can manifest into the lack of bathing, the lack of eating, et cetera, et cetera. So what are like some of those common signs that somebody may pick up on if they were to see their family member or their mates with these different signs of depression? What are like some of those things?
Neglecting their hygiene, maybe always fatigued. Fatigue is a major sign. Maybe not wanting to get out of bed, loss of interest, things that they once did, they have no longer are interested in doing it.
Social isolation.
Yes, isolating themselves, withdrawing from friends. If you hear a lot of self-doubt, a lot of disappointment, negative self-talk, that is a huge sign that someone may be depressed. Suicidal thoughts, homicidal thoughts, physical, verbal aggression. Sometimes when people become depressed, they can't handle the like physical changes that they feel, and they become upset, angry, because they don't understand what's happening. And then they start to lash out, and it starts to affect their relationships and their functioning in their daily lives.
So Kirby, this question is for you, because I want people to understand that one of the main reasons that we have day-by-day therapy is to let people know that you're located in College Park. What made you choose College Park?
We're located in East Point. It's like right on
East
the line.
Point, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's right on the line in College Park in East Point.
Okay.
Reason being is when I visited looking for different places, like, oh, where do I want to practice? Where do I want this? And I noticed there were no mental health within the radius that could possibly take on the community. And I was like, this is a lack of service. This is not okay. And then it's within an area of South Atlanta. You have East Point, you have Hateville, you have College Park, you have downtown, you have Union City, you have all of that, which we have clients that are in those areas that did not have treatment. And instead of them having to travel up north or travel to your Buckhead, travel to your Alpharetta, whatever it is, I wanted to actually bring it to their doorstep so they can have the same health care, the same quality of health care also in their neighborhood.
Wow. And I think that that's important, because how far, because I heard you say Union City, is that the furthest that they come from in Union City, or do they come further than Union City?
We actually have someone in Tennessee.
Wow.
It's as far as Tennessee, Valdosta, on the borders of Valdosta in Florida. It's on the borders of Alabama and Georgia too. So it a lot depends, and especially during the pandemic, and everyone's traveling and everyone's doing this, like, hey, I need help, and they don't have those services available for where they are or where they're going.
Yeah, and you are 100% Black owned, correct?
We are 100% Black owned. That's what my mom told me. Yes.
How many counselors do you have at your center?
We have 3. Well,
you have 3?
Yes, we have 3.
Okay, you have 3. Hours of operation?
So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're here from 8:30 to 5. We close from 12 to 1 for lunch. And then Thursday, 8:30 to 6:30. And then Fridays, 8:30 to 12:30. And then some Saturdays, it depends on our, it's like every other Saturday, but we only do it 2 Saturdays out of the month. And we service people on that Saturday. And then it just repeats itself.
Okay. Do you offer virtual services, or are you strictly online? I mean, are you strictly in person?
So we do offer virtual services. Reason being as we had no choice but to transition, especially during the pandemic. So we offer in-office services and then also telehealth.
Yes. And do you accept insurance, or do you just do strictly pay out of pocket?
We accept all insurances. The only insurance that we do not accept is Kaiser. Reason being, you have to be a Kaiser provider, or you have to be in a Kaiser facility, but that's the insurance that we do not accept.
Wow. And seeing that's good. And that's why I wanted to make an emphasis. And one of the most important things that I wanted to bring you all on today is because I want people to know that this is in your backyard. This is right there in East Point, literally right by the airport. And I'm pretty sure if you go to Spine Divots, you can slide over to day-by-day therapy.
You definitely can.
Yes, because you're definitely, I'm going to use the same exit, correct?
Yes, I would take the same exit. If you don't take the Virginia exit, then I would take the Cleveland exit, because you have to go through all of the traffic from the hospital. So you can just take the exit up from Virginia towards Spine Divots, and then take Norman Berry down. And we're literally right there as soon as the hospital will be on your right and we're to your left.
Okay, that's good. So again, I'm going back to you, Kirby. Do you have time to see patients as you're on an operator? Are you full-blown operator and that's all you do?
I'm full-blown operator. Reason being, I choose not to see clients.
Mm-hmm.
If someone calls me and says, "Hey, can you come give me an opinion, or can you come in here and help me?" That. But I had just a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got my master's when I was 23 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and my internship was at a juvenile justice center, and I witnessed a kid experience more things than I've ever experienced in my 23 years of life. And I knew right then and there I couldn't do that because I'm 23 and this young man that is 14, 15 years old has been through more in their life than I ever have. And I said, how am I going to help them? I can't help them. That's how I felt. And so I said, the only way that I can help is provide the services. I can't necessarily treat them, but I can provide it. But I do enjoy it. I still love it. I still do like my continuing education just to kind of make sure I'm up there if somebody ever does need my opinion. But I refuse to practice.
I understand, and honestly, just speaking about your career path and how everything turned out, you're able to even help more people being the actual owner and director than you were if you were treating them, in my opinion. So I think at the end of the day, it all still worked out. So that's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. So next question: what types of tests that you use to determine if a client is having mental health issues or brain and mental health concerns? So what tests do you use for depression, anxiety, etc.? Can you give us a rundown of how that works?
First, you want to go or you want me to go? Well, we first do initially they have to do an assessment, and the assessment is a PHQ-9.
Mm-hmm.
And what the PHQ-9 does, it basically goes across like, do you have any enjoyment? Have you experienced poor sleep patterns? It's different things like that. It's a 12 questionnaire, I believe. I can't remember the exact number, but based upon that score, it will put you in like a range of, hey, you should be worried, just a little bit worried, or hey, you're fine. So everyone has to do a PHQ-9 upon entrance, and that's just a kind of like a flat thing that we do. But depending on your diagnosis, we do use certain assessments to help and see and confirm that what we're treating is actually what is going on. Because you can be depressed, and someone had diagnosed you with ADHD. And it's like, hold on, wait, let's do this assessment. Let's see exactly, just to kind of pick it through and make sure that we actually are treating the patient for what they are. So one of the anxiety assessments that we do is a GAD.
Mm-hmm.
It's a general anxiety disorder assessment. And I'm trying to think, we do the ADHD assessments. There's a lot of assessments. So to name all of them, it's a lot, but it just depends on the actual patient that we're seeing.
Well, we do have someone who does the assessments and the psyche now.
Yes, and so they do it within that point. Before they even get in the building, the first thing that they have to do is the PHQ-9. And then our intake person, Ms. Gray, she literally says, hey, she diagnoses them, she sees them, and once based upon that diagnosis, then the next step that they go to either therapy or medication management, then they further assessment is needed if the symptoms does not particularly point towards one diagnosis or towards the treatment.
Okay, that's great. And I think you say you have an intake specialist named Ms. Gray. I think I know her. She sounds familiar.
Yeah, you
do. My next question, which is going towards LaPortia, what are some of the out of all your patients, what are one of the most common that you see out of the mental health issues? Is it depression? Is it anxiety?
Depression and anxiety.
They are intertwined, correct?
They are.
How are they intertwined?
Well, depression can cause anxiety symptoms.
Okay.
So, a person can become anxious and, they have like all of these thoughts, and then it kind of manifests into anxiety where they're hypervigilant, on edge. So yeah, depression can cause symptoms of anxiety, and dealing with anxiety can also cause depression.
Yeah, that's what do you suggest people do to combat depression and anxiety, LaPortia?
Well, I would recommend that they understand what's happening to them when it's happening, like seek therapy. Talk to a therapist, because a therapist will help you understand your diagnosis. And I feel like understanding is like the number one most important thing. That's what I do every day. Every day I try to help them understand and meet them where they are, because everybody's depression and anxiety is unique to them. So your anxiety or your depression is not going to look like her anxiety or her depression. So kind of like understanding yourself and how it affects you, and then learning how to manage it. Not saying, we don't give false hope and saying, this is going to go away and you're never going to experience it again, but learning how to manage and cope and deal with it, I feel like is so helpful and so supportive. And even having like a support group, people who understand what you're going through, and that comes with understanding also. So once a person understands their illness, they're able to talk to others about it, educate their loved ones on it, and then they feel accepted and supported. And support is very important as well.
That's good. So if a client comes in and they're experiencing anxiety, or you already figured it out, what are some things that a person can do for anxiety? Because I want to start shifting to anxiety now, because I know I personally deal with anxiety. I know a lot of people deal with anxiety, of course, on different levels. So anxiety wise, what do you suggest that someone do in the event that they're experiencing anxiety?
Breathe.
The simplest thing is to breathe.
Breathe. Relax. My thing is relax. Like every day, honestly, just take time to, take yourself out of your daily activities and take time to breathe, relax. Relaxation, that is very important when it comes to anxiety. Being able to combat your negative thought process, because sometimes when people have anxiety, they always think like, what can go wrong? You always have to have those what could go right moments as well. So learning how to kind of like redirect your focus, redirect your thoughts into a more positive direction. And I know it's difficult for a lot of people, because some people have trauma and things of that nature that may have caused their anxiety. But that's why it's so important to come to a place like Day by Day Therapy, because you have people who are here to help, walk you through and learn how to use these coping skills. Also, there is a lot of people don't know about this, but I really love this. There's a weighted blanket. And so the weighted blanket, you can sleep with it at night, and it makes you feel safe. It makes you feel comfortable. It's kind of heavy, so I don't know how it, would help in the summer. I don't know how that would work, but a lot of my clients really love their weighted blanket. Also, when you have like an anxiety panic attack, sometimes you may feel like it's an out of body experience, like you feel out of your body. So I like to say get a ice pack and kind of put it on you, because it brings you back to, it's like a shock factor, and it brings you back to your space and where you are, and it grounds you. So also another thing I would say is be aware of your surroundings. So when you start to feel that panic and you feel yourself, the heavy breathing and things of that nature, try to focus on something in the room, like one thing in the room, and like it could be the flower on the table, like it's in a vase. The flowers are purple. I know it might sound crazy, but it kind of brings you back. It grounds you. Herbie, do you have any suggestions?
No, you said that was great, and I was like, yeah, that's like really good. And the weighted blanket does work. I love it. I love it. Another thing during the anxiety attack, which you can have, and a lot of kids use it, and it's the fidget. And it's just something to stimulate something else in your mind rather than focusing on what is actually giving you this anxiety attack. And so it takes the attention off of that. It's like, say if you itch, say if your arm itches and you scratch your neck, your arm's going to stop itching. So it's kind of like that. It redirects the anxiety to, or redirects the attention or the focus to what you're actually doing.
Wow, not gonna lie, y'all got me with the weighted blanket. I might order one on Amazon tonight. I bet it feel good too. Anyway, that's
also, there's a breathing technique, because I know a lot of people say breathe, but you breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4, breathe out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and make sure you breathe. When you breathe in, make sure you count, because that kind of takes away from what's going on in your mind that caused anxiety in the first place.
That's good. That's good. I want to remind the audience to please, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat or comment box on whatever streaming platform that you're viewing from. I want to lean now into panic disorder. Can we speak about panic? I'm gonna go back to Ms. Turner. Ms. Turner, can you please tell us about panic disorder, or you can defer to LaPortia, either or, but I want to hear panic disorder and you all's views on it.
So panic disorder and anxiety kind of run one in one. It's pretty, I'm not gonna say it's pretty much the same thing. It's not the same thing, but it's like tomato. And it depends on how you like your tomatoes or how you experience them. That's what panic disorder and anxiety is. So the same things that you do for a panic disorder, or how you function with a panic disorder, is the same thing that you would do for anxiety. You can experience it based upon the surroundings that you're in or around someone. But I can honestly tell you, every single person on this planet has experienced some form of anxiety or a panic disorder, just depending on what stage of life they're in.
Yes, so
I would say, I'm sorry.
Oh no! I was just gonna agree and say that I truly believe that as well. That I believe it manifests earlier in life. We're gonna cut. I don't want to dig too deep into that because that's going to be our next topic about kids. But go ahead, LaPortia. I would like to hear your view on panic disorder.
Okay, I would like to say I know that with a lot of my clients, I like to ask them, like, okay, when did you experience your first panic attack? Because that explains a lot about how they respond, how they react when they're, what triggers their, when they're triggered and have a panic attack. I could say, for example, like someone may not like to sleep with their room door open because maybe someone used to come in their room and, do something to them, when the room door was open. So that might cause like panic at night. So panic can go back to whatever trauma you experienced. And in my experience as a therapist, I learned that when I work with whatever caused the trauma to begin with, whatever caused the panic, when I take them back to that place and they learn to talk about it and they kind of accept what happened to them and they kind of start healing from that place, I learned that they don't experience as much panic symptoms as they would before. And if they do, they learn how to kind of cope and deal with it more effectively when they go back and address that trauma of what started that panic.
Wow, thank you. So which I'm going to segue to our next topic about children and mental health. We, as the 100 Black Men of South Metro Atlanta and Emerging 100 of South Metro Atlanta, we mentor kids, high school, middle school. Our high school program is called the Rites of Passage program. We have a lot of parents and we have children that may be tuned in, Collegiate 100 or whatever. So my question is, how can a parent notice a mental health matter dealing with their child? Like, how can a parent notice that their child is dealing with anxiety, depression, et cetera, et cetera? Let's start with Kirby. I'll go with Kirby first.
If their behavior has changed than what it normally was, And then my biggest thing that I always ask, or say if I'm talking to a parent and they're telling me, hey, this is what's going on, and I just want to figure out what's going on. I'll still talk to parents even though I don't treat anyone because I feel like I need to and just kind of speak to them. But the biggest thing that I would say is your child's emotions like a switch? As soon as something happens, do they flip? And within seconds, without any type of comforting or anything, does it turn off? And then also, if their children stay away from them or isolate themselves, basically, I think that's the two biggest things of the range of emotions, and then also isolating themselves. I think that's the two things that I would particularly notice in a child because you can actually see it. You won't be able to see if your child is depressed because how, like LaPortia had said before, how someone wears depression doesn't mean the same way that I'm going to wear depression. Just because you're depressed doesn't mean you're going to cry. So a lot of things that deal with mental health, especially depression, you can't see. Mental health is just something you cannot see. And then a child can't necessarily tend to their ADLs because their parents are helping them anyway. So it's like, oh, well, you didn't clean up your room. That's typical children behavior. Or you didn't take a bath. That's children behavior. So I would definitely say the things that you can actually see is isolation, and then also their moods. Do their moods swiftly change and then switch back? So that's the two things that I would be able to notice in a child, or that a parent should be able to notice in a child.
Overall, your demographic, a two-part question. Overall, who do you treat the most? Do you treat men the most, women the most, children the most? Who do you treat the most? And then my part two is going to LaPortia. So let's go start with part one. I want part one for both of you all. So Kirby, what is the demographic that you usually see that you treat? So who all do you treat?
We see clients as young as 4. We try not to go past under 4, but there are some kids that do experience panic disorders, like if they get in a car, they've been in a car accident or anything like that, they can experience panic disorders. But we try not to go below 4. We honestly try not to go below 6. But sometimes it's there. It depends on the development of the child. And then we see someone as old as 87. It's a different range of different diagnoses. And then I could tell you it's probably a 35% men, and then the other percentage is women. For children, we probably see 40% children, and then 60% adults.
Wow. I'm happy to hear the 35% statistic for men, because it's a stigma that men don't go to therapy. So to hear that you treat that a majority, that 35% is there, that's a good number in my personal opinion. Of course, it could be higher, but hey, every little bit matters. Now, LaPortia, do you treat any kids? Do you see kids?
Really? They do love me.
I love her.
I do see kids. I see kids. I actually started out working with kids. So I worked through a nonprofit organization, and so I ended up doing like groups in schools. I was like in 8 different Fulton County schools. And I was doing like social learning and emotional intelligence with the kids, but we would do a lot of fun things, teamwork amongst students. Yeah, it was really fun. But I do work with kids as well as adults here at Day by Day Therapy.
LaPortia, what are some common things that you see? Like as I mentioned to Kirby, what are some of the common things in children that you see? Do you see anxiety amongst children, panic amongst children, depression amongst children? And as I mentioned, we have parents that are tuned in that has questions about their kids and what they could view and what they can do to help their kids as they may be experiencing mental health matters. So what do you see often when in the children that you see?
Often I see a lot of kids struggling with like especially the boys. I don't know. I just guess that's a sensitive place for me. With the attention, the focus and concentration. I noticed that a lot of parents get very frustrated with their boys because they're like, why aren't you listening? I have to tell you this over and over again. You know, they feel like they're being defiant, but sometimes it can be their ADHD, or they might have a lot going on in their mind that their parents know nothing about. You know, some kids, I hate to say this, but some kids are experiencing some like hallucinatory things, auditory, like hearing things, and sometimes that might distract them in school. So you wonder why they're not doing so well in school. So focus and concentration is one big thing that I notice with kids. I have to say sometimes parents be a little bit more patient. Try to understand what's going on. Like if they're not listening, is it they're not listening, or like what's going on? Try to understand first before just lashing out, because I do notice this, that lashing out at kids, it might have the opposite effect. It might cause them to start lashing out. They might go to school and start lashing out towards their teachers, their friends, other adults. Mood swings, like Kirby said, mood swings is a big one in with kids. But mood swings could be because of depression. They could be dealing with some depression and they don't understand what it is. Anxiety, self-esteem issues. Build your kids up, encourage them. I have this one little girl who was having a lot of issues, but she comes to therapy now. She's doing great, and she loves her positive affirmations in the morning. Positive affirmations for kids. You can search it on YouTube. Make them listen to it every morning so they can get like some type of motivation, inspiration. Maybe try not to argue a lot in front of your kids, because they kind of pick up on that, and it makes them angry and they act out in different ways. And so when you see your kids acting out, I hear a lot of parents say, like, I don't know why he's saying these things. And then when I ask them, like, okay, well, how do you address him at home, him or her at home? And, you know, the way their approach maybe not be the most effective approach for the child. And another thing, when children are dealing with anxiety, you have to be some parents are more assertive, like they like to talk rough, but some kids are a little sensitive. Right. Some kids are sensitive. So you have to figure out what works for your child, like what style of parenting works for your child.
LaPortia, I'm going to keep pushing that subject. And so you mentioned ADHD, and I want to touch on ADHD some. One, do you feel that ADHD can go misdiagnosed in children? And yeah, let's start there. Do you feel like ADHD can be misdiagnosed in children? Because I know ADHD is one of the more easier ones that a lot of kids get thrown into. Then they have to take the medication, et cetera, et cetera. So can we?
Absolutely. Sometimes it's not ADHD. Sometimes it's depression.
Yes.
And that's very important, because if you have ADHD, and let's say you're diagnosed with ADHD, so now you're on medication for ADHD, and it's heightening other symptoms, and now it's causing another problem. So sometimes the lack of focus and concentration could come from depression, not because they have ADHD.
And a lot of people don't realize that they have depression until later on in life, after they've gotten out of school. And I think that's kind of it's a sticky subject. But if a child is being treated for ADHD for all of those years, and then they get to college, and it's like, oh, it's still my ADHD, and it's not. And then after college, when they aren't in a structural program such as school, they're now realizing this is not ADHD. There's something else going on different.
And then also with ADHD, kids tend to give up because a lot of people don't understand. Like they're not understanding. So kids, they give up. They don't want to do it anymore because they feel like they feel like they can't do it, but really it's they have a different style of learning. So maybe they need more time. Maybe they need accommodations. It's not that they can't do it. So they need more encouragement and less criticism, more understanding.
And lastly, and please do not chop my head off for saying this wrong, but what is it when a child is defiant? What is that called? I cannot think of the name.
Oppositional.
Yes, I was about to tell you the diagnosis code. I was about to say F381, and I can't think of what it is. It's oppositional defiance disorder.
Yeah. So can you expound upon what that is and how a parent can see that in a child? Because I know you mentioned that like it could be disguised as anxiety or depression, but really be something else. So can you expound upon that a little bit, please?
Now, oppositional defiance is just, okay, what it is, pretty much. The child they're angry about something. You know, there's an underlying cause, and they're acting out through not listening.
Is there a way to combat that, or is there a way to pick up on that, or you just have to catch it when it happens and address it? And how do you address it?
Go ahead, Kirby. So as far as combating, it's not a fight. It's more so of the parent, instead of giving up on a child or instead of fussing at them or punishing them or whatever it is, trying to get to the root of the problem of why they're being defiant, and then be patient with them and trying to work out those situations. So say if your child is hiding let me not say that. Say if your child is breaking things in your home, why is your child doing that? Look into that part, and then discuss different things with them. Like, hey, this is not allowed. Let's talk this out, instead of punishing them or mistreating. I'm not gonna say mistreating because parents don't mistreat them. Let me not say that. But instead of punishing them, actually sit down and have a conversation. Hey, why did you do this? You're not in trouble, but I want to know what made you do this, or why are you not listening to me, or why can you not understand that this is not something that you're allowed to do, type situation. But again, that is like LaPortia addressed. A parent or a child is going to give you what you give them. If you give them respect, they're going to give you respect. If you give them kindness, they're going to give you kindness. But if you give them anger, or if they witness anger, or you continually to be mad at them, that's what that child is going to give you. And so the biggest thing is building a healthy relationship with your children so they can be able to express what they are actually going through with you.
And let them know it's okay. Let them know it's okay. Make them feel safe. Make them feel loved. Like, it's okay. I'm supporting you. But there are going to be boundaries. Like, teach them boundaries. Have some structure. But at the same time, support them. Like, it's okay. But we have to talk about these things. Like Kirby said, that's very important. Teaching your kids how to talk through their emotions instead of acting them out, because they're acting them out because they feel like they can't talk about it.
Exactly.
LaPortia, we're gonna stay with you, and we're gonna roll right into bipolar. We have questions from the crowd, but right now I want you to touch on bipolar disorder. Can you please tell us about bipolar?
Okay, well, bipolar disorder, you have your it's kind of depression. You have your depressive episodes where a person is depressed, the classic sign of depression. But then they also experience highs. That's what makes bipolar depression and depression, classic depression. That's the difference. You have manic episodes with bipolar depression. And with mania, that's just like a heightened state where a person may have bizarre, erratic behavior. And it's very important that, like, your family members and support system, if you do have a family member who has bipolar disorder, to support them when they're manic, because they make choices that could be pretty damaging.
But then also for bipolar, in order to be diagnosed with bipolar, you have to have a certain amount of stages or a certain amount of symptoms of longevity. So it's, what is it, LaPortia, 2 years? Is it 2 years? So you would have to experience certain symptoms for a longer period of time in order to receive that diagnosis.
Right.
So everyone that is manic does not mean that that they have bipolar.
Right.
Everyone that is hallucinating does not mean that they have bipolar, or because their actions or their emotions are sporadic does not mean that. And
right.
I'll say this: when say if some person acts this way and they act another way, I've been guilty of saying this, like, oh, you got bipolar, like you're acting like you have bipolar, but that was very incorrect of me to say at that time, because
right.
it could be something else differently, because bipolar is something that's further along, that you cannot be diagnosed with right off of the bat.
Man, y'all knocking it out. Y'all knocking it out tonight. So let's do the first question. Can you all describe how day-by-day therapy handles a crisis, and what would be considered a crisis?
So a crisis would be, I'll give you an example. A child has hit his teacher, tore up the classroom, threw desks everywhere and things like that. And the teacher says, hey, he can't come back until he's cleared. That would be a crisis. Or say if someone cut themselves, that would be a crisis. And how we necessarily handle it is the same person that does our assessments also does our crisis, Ms. Greg. And so she does a crisis questionnaire, but then also does the assessment within that crisis. And based upon there, it's, hey, they're cleared to go back to school. Hey, no, they need to go be checked into a hospital. We'll send over the assessment. We're going to 1013 them. We're going to 1013 them. And then once they're 1013, then they'll go to a crisis stabilization unit. And speaking of crisis, that's actually like one of my dreams, is to actually have a crisis hospital, just to kind of focus on that. And so that those patients, or excuse me, not patients, but children or adults or things like that, that their straight thing isn't going towards, hey, you're going to jail because you just hit your teacher, or you're going to whatever because of something that you didn't necessarily think of. So I think that's the biggest thing of how we handle it, is trying to make sure that we cross all T's and dot our I's before you actually go to the further step of the last point of it, of hospitalization or jail or different things like that.
Oh, that was good. LaPortia, if you don't have anything to add, we can roll to the second question. You have anything to add?
No. We covered it all.
Yeah, that was a solid.
And so a lot of teenagers cut themselves, and it's kind of to take the feeling of being depressed off, and it's not a good coping skill. It's not. So there's other coping skills that you can use besides implementing pain on yourself, but they're trying to take pain away. And it's a dangerous coping skill. Well, it's not even a coping skill. It's a dangerous skill. It's a dangerous act to do. But a lot of teenagers do that, and I'm not sure where it comes from. Like I don't understand what was the history of why people cut themselves to relieve that pain. But if a patient like that came into us, or a teenager came into us, or adult, and they were cutting themselves, then we'll evaluate the situation, put them on a safety plan. If that is, everybody is different. Every situation will be handled differently. But we'll put them on a safety plan and then send them home if that fits for them. And if it's not, if they continue to have suicidal ideations, which cutting is, then we would send them to the hospital.
Wow, thank you. Like I said, I know there's some parents that definitely benefited from that. I know children go through a lot, especially during what we just what we're currently experiencing with what just happened in 2020, which is my next question to you all. Well, yeah, then I'll ask the second question from the crowd. How did 2021 affect you individually, and how did 2020 affect the practice? And so I want you start with Kirby first, and you tell me about how it affected you in the practice, and then we're gonna go to LaPortia, how it affected you, and LaPortia, I'm gonna flip it, and I'm gonna ask you what have you been seeing, and have you been dealing with, and your clients, and what have your clients been experiencing with the pandemic and what was going on. And I know that's probably loaded and that's a lot, but hey, we got a couple minutes left, so I want to go ahead. Go ahead, Kirby.
So 2020 was definitely, LaPortia, you could probably admit to this, I've been running ragged. Trying to make sure that everything was transitioned into a pandemic wise. So that's kind of the hardest thing of having in-office treatment and then having to switch to telehealth. And a lot of our clients don't have access to telehealth or don't know how to work telehealth. Or honestly, some things that we experience with our clients is also paranoia. They're like, no, I'm not putting my information on there. I'm not talking about my health via an app. I'm not doing that. So I can come in, but ma'am, you can't come in. It's a pandemic. We can't see you. So it's certain things that we had to adjust and do in order to keep it running and to continue to service our clients. But I think the biggest thing of change was comfortability. 2020 made no one comfortable. And I literally ran ragged along with the staff. They put in so much to make sure that our clients still were taken care of, even though they may have been experiencing things at their own self. So I think comfortability changed, and then also it made us stronger as a practice and as a group. And I literally, and I say this, I appreciate them so dearly, of everyone that is here, because they make DBDT. And so I think that 2020 just changed everyone, changed the outlook on how we're going to be able to do this. And we couldn't do this alone. We had to do it with everyone included.
All right, LaPortia. One, how has 2020 affected you? And again, what have you been seeing from your clients that has been coming in that has been impacted by COVID, whether it's been, or well, obviously mentally impacted and emotionally impacted? So go ahead, LaPortia.
Well, I would say, first of all, Kirby, oh my goodness, she did a wonderful job when it came to the transition from when the pandemic hit. Kirby was on top of it. She made all of us feel so comfortable, and with the transition, so it wasn't difficult actually. And then it made me realize how supportive, how supported our clients feel, because they're like, okay, if you guys say that this is how we're gonna do it, this is how we're going to do it, because they just love coming here so much and our services, that they were like, okay, if this is how we're going to do it, this is how it's going to work. So for me, but I'm a person that can adapt to a lot of different changes, situations, whatever the case may be. So for me, it wasn't that difficult, but I would say self-care was a big part of my 2021 self-care. Anything can change at any time. Being able to adjust, adapt, be supportive to others around you who may not be, as resilient, or, not being able to handle certain situations. And family, very important. Family is, for me, 2020, 2021, brought me closer to my family. And I hope that it did the same for everyone else. And what was the second part of the question? Because I did forget.
So your clients, so your patients that you've been seeing, have they been coming in saying that they've experienced depression or anxiety from the pandemic? Like I know you have a lot of people.
Absolutely.
Right. A lot of people that may be scared to go outside still, who are not comfortable with traveling, who may have paranoia. Have you been seeing that?
Absolutely. Agoraphobia,
Mm-hmm.
staying in the home, panic disorder. A lot of people have developed panic disorder. Oh, even taking off your mask, that's going to be a big thing. Some people, it might cause a panic for some people to remove their mask. Schools, teachers, principals, things of that nature. You know, teachers are having a lot of anxiety, you know, and you just have to kind of like be sensitive to that as well, because they had to make a lot of adjustments. Healthcare workers, yes, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. It was difficult because you were already dealing with depression and anxiety as it is, and then you have this huge change that you have to adjust to. And it's already difficult to adapt for people who are dealing with depression and anxiety. So having the support, that's pretty much the only thing that they could do, is like lean on their support system, learn new coping skills. That's pretty much you can do, because the pandemic was new to everyone.
Even like parents became teachers.
Yeah.
Chefs. They became parents, teachers, chefs. You became every single thing when the pandemic hit. And to actually experience that and see they can't do anything except stay at home, I think that kind of made parents a little bit more vulnerable of getting depression during the pandemic. So if you have 4 kids and your job is closed and you can't go to work because you have these 4 kids, when the job does open, how are you going to pay your bills? It's so many things that was so wrapped up into
Yes.
what we experience with our clients. And it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? My children can't go back to school, or I'm experiencing this, and it was just a big change.
Oh yeah, and there was also a lot of parents. I'm sorry, Kirby, but a lot of parents, to piggyback on what Kirby said, who were facing like jail time because their kids weren't going to school, logging on to school virtually.
Yep.
So yeah, it was causing parents a lot of depression and anxiety as well.
I'm going to ask the second question from the crowd. How do you handle a situation where a parent is dealing with anxiety? Where a parent is dealing with anxiety and depression, and their children can't seem to cope, and they don't have a support system. So this is coming from the parent's perspective. How can they get their children to understand that they're going through a mental health crisis or a mental health matter? What do you suggest that a parent does, and vice versa? What do you suggest if a parent sees it in their child, but the parent, it's hard for the parent to cope because we have the stigma about how mental health isn't real and how depression is fake and you can't see it, and I know that's a big stigma. So can we address that? Like I said, and that's the final question from the crowd, and then after that we can go ahead and ask some final questions. So go ahead.
I believe that the best thing is, again, to have a good relationship with your children. That's the biggest thing. If your child is able to see what their parent is going through, because they're going to mimic what you do. Your child you're basically your child's role model. Okay, so if you're crying, your child's going to comfort you, and they may even ask, "Hey, mom, what are you crying for?" Or, "Hey, dad, what are you crying for?" And so a good relationship and being able to explain to your child, "Hey, I'm going through a lot. I don't want you to worry about it, but just kind of help me around the house or help me do different things like that." So that's something that they could necessarily do. As far as for children experiencing depression and anxiety, like LaPortia said, motivate them. Look up your affirmations in the morning. Let them know that they are going to be okay through this situation. And then as far as for support systems, as cliche as this may sound, there's a support system for everything. Like there's some community listings that you could even use where you can call 24 hours and they'll talk you through the situation. So there's always a support system. Now you just have to find them, but they're available for different diagnoses and different things that people experience.
I actually had a client where a child where he was depressed and his mom was also depressed. This was during the pandemic, and they both came to therapy. So I feel like that helped as well, because what I did was, I educated the son on a teen. Yeah, I educated him on what depression looked like and how his behavior could be causing more harm on his mother, could be causing her depression to worsen. And then her behavior was causing him to, feel attacked and lash out. So I helped him to understand that. And I kid you not, like, this kid was doing poorly in school and things of that nature. By the end of the semester, he had A's and B's. Like, he proved to his mom that, I can do this, because he realized, oh, my mom may be lashing out at me because she's going through the same thing I'm going through. Now I understand what she's going through. And so, I mean, I feel like it's about educating as well, helping the family. So maybe if the family gets into therapy and educate the child and the parent on, depression and anxiety, that may help.
You literally just, you did two things just now, LaPortia. One, you just gave a very, very, very good example that I feel like it would be effective. Of course, depending on the age, and that's when the child would let the child know, hey, your behavior is affecting my being and vice versa, et cetera. And my behavior is affecting your being. Keeping that open line of communication open is very well. And then the second thing you did was answer my next question, which I was going to ask, was what can happen or what should happen so that a family can be more supportive about mental health issues in the household. You already gave it about everybody going to therapy together, et cetera. So Kirby, final thoughts on this question, and then after this, you just need your contact information.
I agree with everything that LaPortia said. The biggest thing, again, is communication, and that's what therapy is. It's communication, and it's how to deal with your different symptoms. Like, therapy doesn't fix things. Mm-hmm. All it does is aid. It aids you to work through your problems or work through different relationships, work through your anxiety at work, it literally helps you work through life. And it's an unbiased relationship. LaPortia doesn't know these people personally, so when they tell them something, she's really taking that in and she's not judging them.
Right.
So I think that's the biggest thing of therapy, is just aiding people to get to where they need to be. Because therapy is not going to solve the situation. Only you personally can solve the situation. But therapy is there to help you solve the situation, to identify, create a treatment plan, and then solve yourself. So, yes.
Or solve. Yeah. Kirby is right. Like, just guiding them to the solution.
Wow. Well, ladies, I don't know if you know or not, but that was very informative. Thank you so much for spending time with us so that we can get to know Day by Day Therapy, and so we can get to know more of everything that goes on with mental health and what you do and how you impact your community in East Point. I would like to thank you all for joining us on this panel to speak about this matter. I would like to thank the participants for tuning in. Everybody, please fill out the survey at the conclusion of this event that you will receive via Eventbrite. I would like to thank Day by Day Therapy again. We would need to know your contact information. So how can people get in contact with Day by Day Therapy. You first, Kirby.
You can visit our website, DBDP as in dog, B as in boy, D as in dog, T as in Tom, L as in Larry, L as in Larry, C as in cat.com, and go to the contact page. You can also visit and see exactly everything that we actually do in service. And on that website, there's also some assessments too. So if you want to take it for yourself, take it for yourself. You can be reached at via phone 678-573-2970, or our different handles on Instagram. If you want to follow a motivational page that kind of helps you through different mental health problems that you may experience, it's D as in DBDT LLC on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So that's pretty much you could, or you could just Google it. If you Google Day by Day Therapy, it's going to come. I'm not sure if there's another way. It's gonna come up. In East Point, and so you can contact us based upon that. Our operating hours again 8:30 to 5:30, except on Thursdays, which is 8:30 to 6:30, and then on Fridays 8:30 to 12:30. So between any of those times, and sometimes even after that, we'll probably respond to you. It just depends, but definitely be able to just reach out.
Well, again, as I mentioned, thank you so much for expanding your time. Thank you so much for allowing us to take this knowledge that you have and spread it amongst the community. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy your night. Have a great one.
You do the same. Thank you so much for having us.
You're right. Thank you.
Have a good day, y'all.
You too.
See you later.
See you.